chilling on your shoulders, comes over here, farts on me, and then just gets back on your shoulders.
Hey, she knows what's up.
That's kind of rude.
She knows what's up.
Like, what the hell?
Oh my God. What's up, everybody? We got a little, a cameo from the cat today. Office Kitty. This is Nala, in case you guys haven't met. Welcome.
Welcome, guys. Don't you think that they should be in like a Macy's shoot?
This is my vibe today. You know how people wear like fur? This is my fur. She's just alive.
Yeah.
She's just alive. Maybe she'll meow into the microphone if you guys are nice. Anyway, Mike Frank and Andrea Soto.
What's up, guys?
For an adventurous podcast today, talking about National Association of Realtors coming under fire for pretty much everything at this point. I think my favorite thing about where we are in the world is if you don't get canceled, you get obliterated.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it doesn't matter.
You're doing something wrong always.
Well, and you've got like this baseball player that's, up for the MVP award or whatever. And then all of a sudden someone comes out with some sort of allegation of something. It could be sexual or financial or something. And then that baseball player's wife comes out and either is in support or she's in argumentative or she's in defense of him and then gets into a bicker banter match with this other person. And then it's like it just never stops.
Yeah.
Like you can't just get canceled and be done, right?
No.
So, of course, National Association of Realtors is under fire for like a million things right now, or something like 1.8 billion, as a matter of fact, which is the commission lawsuit alleging that sellers are forced or colluded against to pay commissions to real estate agents, which is whatever. It's a good change that's going to catapult our industry in a different direction. But now National Association of Realtors is under allegations of sexual harassment. They're under allegations for antitrust. The financial state of National Association of Realtors is, leading to an uncertain future with all of these potential expenses that are coming up. And I don't know, why is this our world? Why is this what we're talking about? I feel like we should just be talking about house value. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I think what makes it more interesting is when you actually learn the history about commissions and how it used to work, I guess back in the day when there was no buyer representation.
Right.
And that's how sellers,
So to bring everybody up to speed, seller would hire agent, and it would be Andrea, and she'd be with the Fuchsia Company, right? And,
hey, that doesn't sound like a bad name,
right? So seller would be working with Andrea, and they would agree to list their home for X amount of dollars, $300,000, $700,000. And then they would pay Andrea a commission of 6%. That was kind of the standard nomenclature. And then Andrea, in turn, would go to all of her real estate friends and she'd say, hey, I'll give you half of the commission if you bring a buyer, right? Like, help me find the buyer. Mm-hmm. Go out into your little network of drug addicts and alcoholics and all your friends, LOL. But bring them to me and help me sell this beautiful home, right? The listing agent would host events like open houses and brokers opens and wine and cheese and things like that would generate this buzz in the community, and people would eventually bring someone along to buy the house. And so the listing agent would make all of the commission, 6%, unless there was someone who brought along the buyer, in which case the listing agent would share the commission. Later on down the road, there became this thing of buyer's agency. And so I don't know the timeline, but let's just say it's the 90s. And there's this thing called buyer's agency. And, I got involved in real estate in the 2010s. And what it were at that time was everyone worked for the seller unless you were a buyer's agent, right? And if you had a signed agreement with the buyer saying that you were a buyer's agent, you could collect the commission that the seller's agent was advertising on the MLS. Then there became another thing. And here in Maryland, we had presumed buyer's agency, where the buyer presumed that you were their agent because they met with you, which is as the same as meeting with a doctor and presuming that they're a doctor representing your best interest. So of course, presumed buyer's agency made sense for a while. And then that went away. And now we're back to buyer's agency and what we call sub-agency, which is back in the beginning, where everyone represented the seller, the listing agent, and the sub-agent working with the listing agent representing the seller. And now we have buyer's agency. So everyone wants to get paid. And now there's people that allege that the coffee is hot and they burn themselves. It's like the coffee was meant to be hot. That's why you ordered it. The fact that you burned yourself, you're an idiot. So now we have people that allege that the National Association of Realtors is colluding against these sellers, forcing them to pay a higher rate of commission than they could otherwise pay if not for National Association of Realtors. Which, okay, I'm not going to disagree with that logic. I'm going to say that perhaps if there was a more open forum for everyone to get involved without license and this designation and this affiliate relationship where you have to become a realtor and thus the listing agent would have to put it into the marketplace with clear cooperation, and thus the seller would be sort of like obligated to pay blah, 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 blah. So when you go back to the very, very foundation, it's all very, very silly because, well, the seller was paying 6% to the listing agent, and then the buyer's agent came along later, not the other way around, which is why it doesn't quite frankly make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
But then you have people alleging that they spent money that they shouldn't have, that they were colluded against. And I think to myself, well, the value of the coffee is the cost of the truck driver bringing it to them. You can't eliminate the cost of the truck driver. So by saying that I sold my home for $1 million and I paid 6% commission, which if anybody can do the math quickly, it's $60,000, and I could have only paid $30,000 just to my listing agent and not had to pay a buyer's agent. Well, what about the truck that brought the coffee to the coffee shop, right? Like that cost has business too. So now the buyer, in theory, in the same logic, now has a higher cost of doing business, i.e. if you were to tax the coffee to cover the cost of the truck, well, now the coffee costs the buyer more money, thus lowering the value of the coffee in the first place. And in the end of the day, the buyer still pays the same cost. So if we were to go by this logic, the buyer's going to pay their own agent. Well, wouldn't it make the $1 million house worth $970,000?
Less valuable.
Right? Like, so then why are we talking about collusion? Like, it doesn't make sense. If it's a cost of doing business, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Someone's paying it. And by the way that we value real estate is not only what the buyer and the seller are willing to pay for it, but also what the mortgage company is willing to contribute towards the loan, which is based off of an appraisal value. So if you're comparing your home to the other homes in the community with an appraisal, and the other homes in the community were sold with a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, and the listing agent paid 6% to the listing broker, well, wouldn't your home have to be comparably costed, right? Like if I'm driving down the street looking at two coffees that are the exact same brand, same make, same model, same everything, shouldn't I expect them to be the same? If I was at Dunkin' Donuts on the left side of the street versus the right side of the street, like why would that one be more valuable? Oh, because they have a drive-through. Well, that's a value. That's a value add. I have a garage. But like if we're selling the same product with the same cost and the same expenses, whereas this drive-through on the right side of the street charges a tax for the truck, yeah, the coffee would be cheaper. So the value of the house would all of a sudden come down 30 grand because the buyer's not paying the commission. It just doesn't make any sense. I should go to court.
You should go to court.
Now, I'm not in defense of
But that's
National
why you're on the board
Association of
now.
Realtors either. Well, that's a different argument. I'm not so sure that they like me there, to be honest with you.
Hey, I mean, someone's got to be the
Someone
person.
must like me because they nominated me.
Yeah.
But like, being on the board of realtors is like a blessing.
I think it's because you bring a challenging perspective. And I think that's maybe why some people may, I don't know. I haven't heard any of your, I assume because you can't
Like
talk about
at the board, you mean?
Yeah, like I've never heard any stories of you on the board.
I'm usually very, very quiet and amenable until someone says something silly.
Yeah. Something silly.
Well,
Something that doesn't make any fucking sense. That's a really nice
Something
way
that
of
doesn't make
putting
any
it.
fucking sense. All right, so here's an example of me at the board, right? So I sit on the board for the Charitable Foundation, which is a really amazing organization. We raise money to support families in Baltimore and the greater Baltimore community that have challenges relating to housing. And there's a lot of things that relate to housing, right? Education and well-being and positive mindset and community. So we might donate toys to a toy drive. Like that's relating to housing. It's very back-winded, but then we're trying to raise money and people want to donate, to this toy drive and to this, shelter and to this other, upstart company. And I'm all about it. And we got into a conversation one day and I just sat there silently and didn't say anything. And I voted yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And at the end of the meeting, they said, Mike, do you have anything to contribute? And I said, to be honest with you, I'm here for totally different reason. And they were like, well, why are you here? I said, I respect everyone's philanthropic giving. And I think it's really, really important foundation in my life. But I'm here to raise money. I'm going to support whoever you want to give it to. Right? Like I'm not the person that's on this board that's just like wants to give out money. I'm here to do a job that's just to raise money for the Charitable Foundation, which I think everyone on the board looked at me like I had two heads. I'm like, y'all want to give money. Like you very often get my vote. I'm going to say yes, 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 yes. I just think of it as my job to now raise more money, right? Instead of selecting where the money goes, I'd rather be in charge of raising more funding. And I think that mindset shifted something for our chairperson, because then in follow-up meetings, it became a little bit of a different conversation, which made me happy, of course.
Yeah, because it's less of being selective and more being aware of the overall necessity of it all.
That's our goal. Our goal is to provide, not to decide who gets what. Right? Like, yes, of course, that's our job. And the same thing for the board. We have a high responsibility for what our clients receive as professionalism and education and standards of practice and other pieces of the puzzle. But deciding what day the board is going to host their annual gala, it's like, come on, guys, let's just pick one. Let's go. Like the
gala.
I don't know. But like,
you sound like Kendall Jenner. You don't remember that? When she was like the Met Gala. We're invited to the Met Gala.
All right, let me tell you, if I'm invited to the Met Gala, I'll call it the
I'll call it whatever you want me to call it.
I don't give a shit. If I can go, I'm down. But like, for me, when I look at the National Association of Realtors and their challenges that they've had in the last 12 months, I think that the lawsuit that's been put in front of them is very well founded. And I understand it from a very micro level. I also understand why they were found guilty at the micro level. Because the goal is to push it up the chain, not to make the decision to shut down the consumer, but push it up the chain and let it go to the appellate court and let it go to the Supreme Court and let it get to that point where it's going to have fundamental change, which is what I'm the most excited about. The fundamental change that needs to happen in our industry is we need to stop talking about the costs of doing business as though we shouldn't have them.
Yeah.
There are costs. And if a buyer wants representation, in my opinion, that representation should be provided as a sense of security for the seller. Now, it's a difficult sell because it's a huge amount of money. But what we don't need is we don't need future allegations to sexual harassment and allegations of financial distrust and allegations of, thank goodness we've never had any NAR, National Association Realtor level allegations of, what is the politically correct word?
Misconduct,
That's one, but I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
It's okay, we can cut this
Not
out.
racism. What is it's a D word. Diversity, discrimination. Thank you, Liv. Jesus Christ. At least I knew it started with a D. Right? But like, It undermines the very fundamentals of what National Association of Realtors is here for, to create equal housing opportunities for all parties. And I think if we go back to the foundation of why National Association of Realtors exists and stop focusing on the little details, the little dramatic pieces of, 10 different sellers coming into allegations of collusion of financial consideration. And we go back and we focus on the little guy, the person that otherwise wouldn't have the capacity to buy because of a lot of these discriminatory practices that did happen long ago before commissions became under fire. That's the intention of National Association of Realtors, and that's what we need to protect.
Yeah.
Now, do I care if it's the National Association of Realtors or Redfin's Association? I don't care. I just think someone needs to be there to develop a system, to provide structure, to provide support for so many family members that do earn a living off of real estate, that do provide a difference for the community from real estate, that do create opportunities for people that need from real estate.
Yeah.
It's like, it's too embedded in society to just let it go away and like whatever happens, happens. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that it's not a good time for change.
Yeah.
Whew. Man, powerful. If you guys want to read about this, by the way, the Wall Street Journal just posted an article. Let's see if I can get to the article real quick. National Association of Realtors Real Estate Powerful Realtors Group loses grip on the industry. It's a really great read. It's incredibly long, so be prepared. Or you could go to our website at frankoliverco.com to our additional resources, to the blog, and you guys can get a little bit of an abbreviated version of what's next for the National Association of Realtors. I think it talks a little bit about the legal battles and the struggles that they've had at a very, very national level. And I think it does play a role into what the future holds for us as a realtor community.
Yeah, 100%.
But it doesn't impact what you do as a seller. My personal opinion.
I mean, I feel like it definitely impacts how society views us as well. I mean, us as a job that we do, and people that we are in this industry. So naturally, people are going to talk to us about it. They're gonna
I definitely agree.
For our
I think
opinion and things like that.
When the job scale comes out and they talk about the most trusted or the least trusted, it's always realtors towards the bottom, car salesmen are at the bottom. And it's like, well, what if we could create a change around that? What if people could use realtor as a similarity to trust and confidence? I don't think we'll ever get to a level where it's doctor, lawyer, right? But it would be nice to move up a scale, right? Realtor ahead of maybe construction guy.
Yeah.
Would be nice. But I think
you would think that someone, I mean, like an actual, I mean, realtor, the difference between like a real estate agent and a realtor, someone that, takes care of their people, builds generational wealth through real estate, helps their people, always finds and does the best things for them, not just goes out, shows houses.
I agree. I think the challenge is, and the question becomes, realtor means that they're a member of the National Association of Realtors. But does that mean that they're looking out for their client's best interest? Like, does that alone symbolize that they're that person of trust?
No,
right?
I mean, it should.
I mean, I agree.
It should, but it doesn't.
It doesn't at all. And I think in our industry especially, it's too easy to become a realtor. It's too easy to have that barrier of entry, where there's a lot of people that have bad experiences with, mechanics, or a lot of bad experiences with a doctor or a lawyer. The barrier of entry is much, much higher. And thus, I think the bad experiences are fewer. Whereas with realtors, you're hiring someone who most commonly you've not known for more than a week. You're hiring someone who you most commonly have not known for any level of intimacy or understanding for what's probably the largest purchase of your life. I mean, imagine if you were to go to a doctor innocuously. Like you just were like, hey, I'm thinking about, taking the equity out of my home and selling this property and buying a new one. And you were like, hey, look, man, my heart's been hurting me. I'm thinking about having a heart transplant. Right? Like that's what we're doing. Okay. We're going to take this heart out. We're going to get a new one. We're going to put it in and we're going to be healthy and richer because of it. Right. Like, the fact that somebody would do that without having a relationship with that doctor, without having a diagnosis from that doctor, without maybe getting a second opinion or some sort of long-term medical care before they thought about having a heart transplant is psychotic. And yet, for real estate, that's exactly what we do.
Yep.
We pick up the phone and we go Zillow because we trust Zillow. And then Zillow directs us to whoever is on the other end of Zillow. And we presume that we trust that person. And then we do trust that person because they're nice or they look like us or they talk like us. They have an accent from Texas and we're from Texas. So we should trust them, right? And then what happens next? Something goes awry a year or 2 years later. Well, we never talk to that person again anyway. So what's the difference? But my real estate transaction really sucks. So the community of realtors becomes
tainted,
muddied and tainted. It just doesn't make sense. And what if we could find ways to run reports and do cardiograms and draw blood and, give an analysis of our like health and well-being of your property before you actually jumped in to, have heart surgery.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, this is also spoken from somebody who hasn't been to a primary doctor in a couple years, but
oh my goodness.
I'm not dying. But then again,
if you are, you won't know.
I won't know.
Nope, you won't.
Maybe I should be preaching to the choir. Don't let my wife listen to this podcast.
Preach to a mirror.
Right. Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, but I mean, I also agree that I feel like we definitely don't get enough credit for how much we are able to help, each individual person in their own way.
I think that that's the challenge is, are we helping each individual person? Is each individual person recognizing that help or are they searching for it in the first place? And maybe that's where we start is like, are they searching for it in the first place?
Hey girl.
Podcast viewer number 1. Very
She's
enthused.
So cute on the side.
Anyway, like, are we having our consumers get their annual checkup? Are we doing the drawing of the blood and the cardiograms and the other things that we should be doing as realtors? And not us coming to the buyer, but is the buyer coming to us for that annual checkup?
Yeah.
I mean, I would hesitate to ask. I wish we had some interaction on this podcast. How many people watching the podcast right now have had their HVAC checked in the last 12 months? Silence, right? Like, to be honest, I haven't even had mine.
Yeah.
I have done a little checkup for myself, right? Like checked my breasticles, but it's like I'm not taking the professional approach that I should be taking to protect the investment that I've made. Yep. It's the same thing that we should be doing with realtors.
100%.
I can't type and talk at the same time. Whoop. There you go. So, yeah, I think with all the fire that's coming out, it's going to be interesting how the real estate landscape looks. Probably, I would say 6 years from today. I mean, nothing's going to change in the next 12 months. Do you think? What's going to change in the next 12 months? Nothing.
More buyers.
Yeah, I mean, like on a hyper local level, yeah, there's going to be more and there's going to be more activity and there's going to be more opportunity. And yeah, you as a buyer can get wealthy from real estate in the next 6 years. But
I think, and I don't know if it's just because I've, added some years to my life, but I feel like real estate and overall has become very, very mainstream. It has just been, sorry, oh my goodness. It has just been a topic that's just talked about a lot more, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, but I don't think it's going to change the industry.
I think it might change the way people view the industry, like society. it may not change the system that we run and how we treat society, like as the system treating society, but I think it will change the way society views and performs with real estate.
If I was able to go out to Oriole Park, walk out onto the field and be the next batter up, would somebody pay the $50, $100, $200 for a ticket to watch me fucking bat against somebody else?
Probably not.
So if 100 people did that every single game, attendance would go down. I almost feel like the more we talk about real estate, the more it becomes sexy to be a realtor, the more that society idolizes it or maybe iconicizes it. I think the more watered down it becomes.
I don't disagree with you.
People that take a real pride of what they do, coming to the office, learning, growing every single day. I mean, I had a meeting with somebody this morning, 8 a.m. First thing they said, my team members suck. It's like, well, how many houses did your team members sell in the last 12 months? It's like, I don't really know. I'm like, they're not coming to the office. They're not working. They're not doing anything. I said, well, are you guys doing anything for education and training? And he said, oh, I have a training once a month. And I thought, are you even taking it professionally as a teacher? Is that what you would consider a professional level of training? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's different for everyone. But I think the idea that you can be a realtor coming to your team's training once a month and have any level of success is foolish. And yet that's what we pitch to people is, oh, you could do it part-time. You can be a part-time agent. You can do it in conjunction with your other job. Well, how good are you going to be as a mechanic if you're working as a real estate agent on the side?
Yeah.
How good are you going to be as a mechanic if you're a teacher from 9 to 5, but you're a mechanic from 5 to 7? How good are you going to be? Oh, I've been doing it for 7 years. Well, great. How many oil changes have you done? Oh, I mean, 1 or 2 a week, for 7 years. I'm like, 1 or 2 a week, like oil changes? You should be doing 1 or 2 an hour. You know what I mean? Like that should be a routine thing that you do as a mechanic. How many showings have you been on in the last month? Well, I mean, probably 2 or 4 a day as a real estate agent versus the person that's working as a teacher full time and in real estate part time in the last month. Maybe they've shown 4 or 7 houses. It's like, how good are they going to be if they've only looked at 4 or 7 different foundations or 4 or 7 different HVAC units or 4 or 7 different, electrical panels in the last 12 months?
Yeah.
Well, last month. It's just the level of professionalism doesn't correlate with the level of ideology behind the sexiness of it. You can be a real estate on Instagram. You can be a real estate agent on Instagram, but you don't actually have to sell anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the National Association of Realtors has an icon problem.
Yeah.
Is that they're no longer hiring realtors, like you said, someone to trust and represent. They're just hiring bodies.
Yeah.
Someone that wants to be a social media icon. And that's fine, but it's not going towards building generational wealth and creating someone that you can trust and confide in to give you good real estate knowledge.
And look to over the years.
Yeah.
I feel like after the 2-year trial, so that's what they should call it. The 2-year trial. Yeah, I mean, hey, in this market, it might be the 6-month trial. I mean, shit.
I think the other thing for people to know is like, hey, you've been in business for 2 years. If somebody called you and said, hey, I'm having trouble with my electrician, they're telling me that, they can't pull a permit, it's taking forever. You'd be like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that, right? Like you have experience. That's the value in the future. They're not just picking up the phone to call you to buy a house. They're picking up the phone as a resource. And that's where you said, like,
that's the difference.
NAR should be, realtors should be a resource. But I think that's the challenge that the National Association of Realtors has, is that they're not creating that resource. They're creating that body, right? Like all the people.
Yeah.
It's almost like a political party. It's kind of a good analogy.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they know what they're doing, but it's going to be interesting. I suspect in the next 12 months, there's going to be many lawsuits that come out alleging NAR. Why? Because they've lost and because they have billions of dollars, right? Number two, I think that every single one of those lawsuits is going to be found in a appellate court going for appeals. NAR is going to appeal the value and they're going to speak to their credits. And then it's going to end up at the national level at some point where NAR is going to have to appeal to the judicial system of the government. And there probably will be some sort of restrictions and maybe there will be some sort of competing, sales agent organization. I don't really know what that looks like. But what I'm preparing for is I'm preparing for more education for our consumers, to educate them where their money goes, to help them see why hiring a professional on a buyer's agent transaction is a value, and helping sellers understand that their money is not going away in vain, right? If they sell their house for sale by owner, statistically, it's going to sell for 4 to 5% less than a house sold by a real estate agent. So, we're not really losing anything here. When we dial in and we actually bring down the value of what a listing agent does, but perhaps there's a change to the way a listing agent can structure compensation that would be beneficial for the sellers and follow suit for appraisal value and other pieces of the puzzle. And that's where I think the education of realtors or maybe like Redfin tours, right? Like whatever that next big organization is that takes over that next spot. We might have the Democrats and the Republicans of real estate world that all work together to set bills into law and create system and structures that benefit the society as a whole. What's wrong with that on a real estate level?
Yeah.
It's just right now, it's very hyper controlled by one party that sort of rose to power.
Yeah. I love the concept of, like, I think the best example, and I feel like it'll always be the best example, is one of Christian's first deals, is that he structured his commission based on the sales price that he was able to get for his seller.
Right.
So having the opportunity to say, hey, if you want to sell your house right now, this is, how much I charge.
Right.
But I know your house can get to this level and this level.
Right.
So it's like, if I can sell your house at this much more than what you could get right now, this is going to be my commission off that.
Right. The sliding scale model.
Yeah. And I think I have always really, really admired that. And that's just, I don't know if you can get that with a lot of people, but I don't know. It was just an opportunity that kind of opened my eyes. If you show your value to your sellers, you show them what you bring to the table and the amount of change you can bring to the transaction, that is worth the cost. At the end of the day, it's more money in your pocket, less than, I guess more out of it based on the commission, but it's going to be more overall.
Right. So, it takes an open-minded seller to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Where you're prepared
100%.
to pay more for a higher sales price and less for a lower sales price. I think it also speaks to the little differences between, look, I'll have you do my roof. It's fine, but it's going to rain tomorrow. So if you could do it today, I'll pay you more. Well, why are we any different, right? Yep. I'll have you sell my house, but if you could sell it for a bigger premium faster than the other guy that's going to sell it for less money, it's going to take him 3 months. I don't understand. What's the problem here? Yeah, it should just be a model, almost like a spreadsheet, right? Time, price, and then commission moves in the middle. You know what I mean? Like somewhere in there should be some sort of value, but the seller has to see it as well, which comes back to like the future of what commission looks like. And I think that that's a possibility too. I think maybe having a tiered model would make sense for higher priced homes. The challenge becomes a really true luxury agent is going to control their market because they control the buyer.
Yeah.
And so it's a challenge where clear cooperation and the National Association of Realtors has brought value because they've eliminated that sort of like monopoly that luxury agents have and allowed agents like us to sort of permeate 400, 700, 1.1, 1.7, 2.5 million. And in other markets, it's tens and 20s of millions, but would be nice.
It would be nice, but
So it's just a challenge to create that structure to benefit the little guy. And that's the reality, is that, in my opinion, the reason that the National Association of Realtors has any value at all is to protect, Andrea Willis bought a $180,000 house in Baltimore City with the subsidized housing program. Utilizing grants and down payment assistance, she was able to be the first person in her family to buy a house. And she's a grandmother, right? This is her first home, first person in the family to buy a home. There's so much opportunity. And that was created through some of the legislation and some of the support and the lobbying that National Association of Realtors does. So if we take away the really ugly parts of NAR and we start to bring back value, I think that that could be a real value for our consumers, to be honest.
I completely agree.
All right, well, we got to get rolling, but hopefully we can catch up with you guys soon. You know where to reach me on Instagram at michael.frank____. You can always reach us on our website at frankoliverco.com, or you can always call me.
Call me, beat me.
Call me, beat me. How are they going to reach you, girl?
You guys can reach me on Instagram, Andrea_Soto.
There you go.
Contact info all there.
All right, we'll catch you guys real soon.
Bye.
What's up, guys? Thanks for watching. For more information on the housing market, Real Estate 101, how you can leverage your position in today's market, and so much more, click on the link below. If you like this video or have a burning real estate question you'd like us to answer, leave us a comment and let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you again real soon.